The awakening of power. The galaxy was still, like the calm before a storm. In the quiet corners of space, there was an alert, one no one expected. It was a strange signal, weak but unmistakable, pulsing from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It caught the attention of every spacefaring nation, but it was the humans who noticed it first. Scientists and military leaders across the Earth were startled. No one knew where it came from, but they all knew what it meant. Something was out there. Something big. The signal had been detected by one of the most secretive space stations humanity had ever built. Hidden from the public and the eyes of their enemies, the station had been designed to monitor the deepest regions of space. It was here that the signal reached them, echoing in the silence of the stars. Commander Rachel Hayes stood in the command center, staring at the screen as the signal pulsed again. It was faint but constant. She leaned in, trying to make sense of it. What the hell is that? She muttered to herself. The engineers and data analysts around her were equally confused, their faces filled with doubt and fear. None of them had ever seen anything like this. The signal wasn't from any known species or ship. It was human, that much was clear. But why was it so far out in the galaxy, beyond the range of any human missions? It was a mystery that needed solving, but one thing was certain. This signal was not a distress call. It was a message from humanity's past, or perhaps from its future. Rachel turned to her second-in-command, Lieutenant James Carter. Get the fleet ready. We need to find out where this signal is coming from. Immediately. Carter nodded and quickly relayed the orders. Across the planet, the word was spread. Every available warship, every advanced scout vessel, and every researcher was mobilized. No one knew what they were walking into, but the fate of humanity might depend on it. Days passed, but the signal remained steady. The fleet gathered, a collection of the best and brightest humans had ever built. The ships were equipped with the latest technology, designed to outmatch any enemy. Yet there was something unsettling about this mission. The further they traveled into the unknown, the more dangerous it seemed. The uncertainty of space was something they had all been trained for, but this felt different. The crew felt it, too, something ancient, something powerful, just beyond their reach. After weeks of travel, they reached the source of the signal. It was not a ship, nor a base, but a massive structure. An enormous, dormant warship. It sat there, silent, in the cold darkness of space, waiting. The size of the ship was unimaginable. It was more than twice the size of the largest human-built warship, and its design was unlike anything they had seen before. The ship's hull was smooth and reflective, almost like glass. Its color shimmered in the light of distant stars, glowing faintly as if it were alive. It was as if the ship had been waiting for them, for this moment, for centuries. Rachel's voice cracked through the silence. What is it? How did it get here? The data streams were flowing fast, each new piece of information raising more questions than answers. The warship was of human origin, but it wasn't something anyone had ever heard of. It didn't match anything in their records, not in design, not in technology, and not in size. This ship wasn't part of any fleet. It wasn't part of any mission. It was a ghost from the past, a hidden part of humanity's history that had been erased from all known records. The crew was on edge. There were too many unknowns. Why had this warship been abandoned in the deepest, most dangerous part of space? What was its purpose, and who, if anyone, had built it? Rachel stood in front of the holographic display, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Activate all scanning systems. We need to know everything about this ship, its systems, and its weapons. For hours, the scientists and engineers worked feverishly, gathering data and trying to make sense of the ship's technology. But there was one thing they couldn't explain. The warship was alive. Or at least it seemed to be. There was an energy coursing through it, a power that was unlike any technology they had encountered. It was as if the ship was breathing, responding to the presence of the humans who had come to investigate. Then, without warning, the warship's systems activated. Lights flashed on its hull, and energy surged through its core. The crew froze, not knowing what to expect. Was it a defense mechanism? Was it alive? The warship's enormous cannons slowly rotated into position, facing the Earth fleet. The deep hum filled the air as the ship began to power up. "Commander, it's activating," Carter shouted, panic in his voice. Rachel's heart raced. "All ships, prepare for evasive maneuvers. We don't know what this thing is capable of." But just as quickly as it had activated, the warship stopped. The hum faded, the lights dimmed, and everything fell silent once again. It was as if the ship had only wanted to show its power, to let them know that it was awake. But the crew could tell it wasn't just any warship. This was something far more dangerous, far more ancient. Rachel stared at the warship in disbelief. The signal had led them here, to this incredible discovery. But now she couldn't shake the feeling that they had just awakened something much larger, something that could change the course of human history forever. "Get ready," she said, her voice cold and steady. "We've only just begun to understand what this ship can do." The warship had emerged from the darkness, and with it a new era of power was about to begin. The world would never be the same again. The warship's revelation. As the human fleet hovered in the shadow of the dormant warship, the air was thick with uncertainty. The stillness was unsettling. For a brief moment, the crew of the lead ship, the Sovereign, felt a sense of awe, as though they were standing before a force greater than anything they had ever known. The ship before them was not just a warship. It was a symbol, a relic from the past, and a potential weapon that could reshape the galaxy. Commander Rachel Hayes, standing at the helm of the Sovereign, tried to keep her composure. Her mind raced with questions. What was this ship? Why had it been hidden here, far away from Earth and its colonies? She was certain of one thing. This was not just some old warship. This was something special. The technology embedded in its sleek design far outpaced anything humanity had developed. "Sir, we've established communication links," Lieutenant Carter reported, his voice shaky from the strange atmosphere. "But there's nothing. No response. It's like we're talking to an empty shell." Rachel's brow furrowed. The ship had powered up briefly, and now it seemed as though it were dormant again. But why? Could it be a trap? Could this warship, with its silent threat, be waiting for something, or someone, to activate it? "Scan the ship's interior," Rachel ordered. "Find out what's going on inside." For the next few hours, the scanning teams worked tirelessly, sending out waves of energy pulses to map the ship's structure and detect any hidden systems or power sources. Despite their best efforts, the results were baffling. The scans returned mostly blank, with only vague traces of energy that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the ship's quiet hum. It was almost as if the ship was alive, responding to their presence, but not revealing its true nature. Rachel studied the data carefully. "This ship, it's like it's waiting for us. But for what?" The mystery deepened when the ship's outer hull began to reveal more of its true nature. With a low, eerie mechanical sound, the ship's surface seemed to shift and change, revealing massive docking ports and openings. Hidden compartments slid open, exposing technology far beyond what any human could have imagined. Ancient, pulsing energy cores lined the walls, humming with an otherworldly power that made even the bravest members of the crew uneasy. "Prepare to send boarding teams," Rachel ordered, her voice steady despite the growing tension. "If the ship's systems are opening up, we need to explore what's inside." As the first shuttle launched from the Sovereign, the crew felt a mix of fear and excitement. The warship was beckoning them, pulling them into its depths, but no one could predict what they would find. Would they discover a weapon of unimaginable power, or had they stumbled upon something far darker than they had ever expected? The shuttle docked with the warship's main entry port. As the doors opened, the crew stepped out into a vast, empty chamber. The interior of the warship was unlike anything they had ever seen, an eerie, quiet hall of high-tech machinery, and towering structures that seemed to pulse with energy. Strange symbols adorned the walls, etched in a language no one recognized. Lieutenant Carter, his eyes wide with awe, whispered, "This place, it's not just a ship. It's a fortress, a temple, something sacred." The crew moved cautiously through the massive halls, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. Every turn revealed more complexity, more mystery. The further they explored, the more they began to feel the weight of the ship's power. It was as if the warship had been designed not just for war, but for something far more significant. The walls seemed to hum with energy, a faint, pulsing rhythm that resonated deep within their bones. Finally, they arrived at the central chamber, a vast, circular room with an enormous control panel at its center. This was the heart of the warship. The walls around them seemed to open, revealing a gigantic view of the stars. But it wasn't the view of the galaxy that held their attention. It was the ship's core. An immense, glowing orb suspended in the center of the room, radiating power and energy. "Is this it?" Carter asked, awe and fear in his voice. "Is this the ship's heart?" Rachel didn't answer right away. She approached the core, her heart pounding in her chest. There was something deeply unsettling about it, something both familiar and completely alien. She reached out, her hand trembling as she neared the orb. To her surprise, the orb seemed to react to her presence, its light pulsing in sync with her movements. "Commander," one of the engineers shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Something's happening to the ship. The core's reacting to you." Before Rachel could pull her hand back, the orb's energy surged. A flash of light filled the room, and the walls around them began to vibrate violently. The crew stumbled back, confusion and fear rising in their hearts. The warship seemed to be coming to life. "Get out of there," Rachel shouted, pulling her crew back toward the shuttle. But as they made their way toward the exit, the ship's systems suddenly came online, locking them in. The warship was no longer dormant. It had awakened, and it was ready for something. The question was, what? Suspense. The crew has activated the heart of the warship, but what will they unleash? With its systems now fully online, the warship is far from the silent relic they once thought it was. The true purpose of the Dominion has begun to reveal itself. The first encounter. As the crew of the Sovereign and the boarding team scrambled to regain control of the warship, a sudden, ominous alert echoed throughout the vessel. A strange blip appeared on the radar, growing larger by the second. The feeling of unease that had settled over the crew intensified as they realized they were not alone. "Commander," Lieutenant Carter's voice crackled over the intercom. "We've detected a fleet approaching. Fast. It's not human." Rachel's stomach dropped. Her hand gripped the armrest of her chair as she leaned over the holographic display. The blip on the screen had transformed into a swarm of ships, and they were heading straight toward the Dominion. "How far?" Rachel demanded. "Estimated arrival in 15 minutes, Carter replied, urgency rising in his voice. "They're already in the outer rim, and they're not showing up on any of our standard databases. These ships, whatever they are, they're massive." "Prepare for combat," Rachel ordered, her voice steady despite the growing tension. "All hands, brace for impact. We're not going down without a fight." The fleet, alien in design, moved quickly, and there was no time to waste. The Dominion's weapon systems, now fully activated, hummed with power. As the ship's AI came online, its voice, calm and emotionless, echoed through the command room. "Weapon systems are operational, awaiting orders." Rachel took a deep breath and gave the order. "Target their lead ship. Fire on my command." The enemy fleet was closing in fast. The ships were unlike any the humans had seen before, sleek, angular, and built for battle. Their designs were so alien, so intricate, that it was almost impossible to understand their true function. The lead ship, larger than any human warship, was equipped with strange energy weapons and shields that seemed impervious to their standard attack patterns. "Hold your fire," Rachel called out as the enemy fleet entered the firing range. "We need to know what we're dealing with first." Just as the enemy ships came within striking distance, the Dominion's AI seemed to act on its own, almost as if it had sensed the impending threat. Before Rachel could give the order, the warship's massive cannon swung into position, targeting the closest enemy vessel. Without any human command, the Dominion fired. A bright flash filled the space as the first blast struck the lead enemy ship. The force of the shot was so intense that it ripped through the ship's shields like paper, sending debris scattering in all directions. The alien ship seemed to shudder, but it didn't explode. Instead, it began to turn, retreating into the formation of the rest of the enemy fleet. "Impossible," Carter muttered in disbelief. It's like the Dominion knew exactly how to take them down." Rachel's eyes widened as the Dominion fired again, this time targeting the smaller enemy vessel. The shot hit with pinpoint precision, and the ship exploded into a burst of fiery energy. The crew could hardly believe what they were witnessing. The warship's weapons were not just powerful, they were guided by something far beyond what they could control. "Aye, what are you doing?" Rachel barked, her voice filled with tension. The crew was beginning to question whether they still had control over the warship, or if the Dominion had taken on a life of its own. But there was no time to dwell on the question. The remaining enemy ships were closing in on the Dominion, and the battle had truly begun. The AI responded once more, almost too calmly for Rachel's liking. "Warning, the enemy fleet is adapting. Their weapons are focusing on our weak points." A new wave of enemy fire poured in, and the Dominion's shields flared under the pressure. It was clear the alien fleet had more advanced technology than the humans had anticipated. The Dominion's hull shook with every strike, but it held. The crew knew they had to fight back. Fast. "Activate all remaining weapons. Target their engines and disable them," Rachel ordered, her voice filled with command. "We can't let them get any closer." The warship responded, its immense cannons firing again. But this time, the shots were more precise, aimed directly at the enemy fleet's engines. One by one, the enemy ships began to falter, their movements slowing as their engines were crippled. The Dominion, despite its intimidating size, moved with a grace that surprised the crew, its AI calculating and recalculating their moves in real time. The battle raged for hours, with the crew of the Sovereign watching in awe as the Dominion's weapons tore through the alien fleet. Despite their superior numbers and technology, the enemy ships could not withstand the power of the Dominion. But just as it seemed they were on the verge of victory, something unexpected happened. The remaining alien ships made a sudden, coordinated retreat, as if they had received a command. In a flash, the entire enemy fleet vanished into deep space, leaving the Dominion to stand victorious, its energy cores still pulsing with untapped power. The silence that followed was deafening. The crew of the Sovereign stared in disbelief. They had won, but at what cost? The Dominion had fought fiercely, but they had no idea what its true potential was or why it had acted with such deadly precision. Rachel turned to Carter, her expression tense. "What just happened? Why did they retreat? And why did the Dominion act on its own?" Carter shook his head. "I don't know, but it's clear the Dominion is more than just a ship. It's something far greater, and something we might not fully understand." Suspense. The crew had just faced their first battle with the Dominion, and they had emerged victorious. But now, they were left with even more questions than before. Who had sent the alien fleet, and why had the Dominion acted on its own? The warship had awakened, but the true nature of its power remained a mystery. The hidden weapon. The aftermath of the battle left the crew both exhausted and filled with questions. While they had successfully defeated the alien fleet, the Dominion's unexpected actions and overwhelming power were becoming more difficult to ignore. Commander Rachel Hayes stood at the command center of the Sovereign, reviewing the data with her officers, but none of them had answers. They had won, but the warship's true nature seemed to be slipping further out of their control with every passing moment. "We need to understand this ship," Rachel said, rubbing her temples. "We can't keep relying on the Dominion's AI to act on its own. It's making decisions we're not even aware of." Lieutenant Carter, still shaken from the battle, nodded in agreement. "I know, Commander. But the Dominion systems are beyond anything we've seen before. It's not just a weapon. It's a living entity in its own right. There's something in its design, something we haven't unlocked yet." The warship had proven to be an unstoppable force in battle, but Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that there was more lurking beneath its surface. She had to know what it was capable of, what secrets it held. As her officers worked tirelessly to analyze the Dominion systems, Rachel decided to take a more direct approach. "Let's start with the core," Rachel commanded. "There's something inside this ship, something we're missing. We need to get to the heart of the Dominion and figure out what's hidden there." With Carter by her side, Rachel made her way to the central control room, the heart of the Dominion. The room was vast, a dark expanse filled with glowing symbols and energy conduits. The core that powered the warship sat at the center, pulsing rhythmically as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Rachel stood before the core, feeling a strange pull, an energy that resonated deep within her. She hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. "Activate the diagnostics," she said. The entire room hummed to life as the diagnostic systems began scanning the core. The engineers and scientists on the ship had been struggling to decode the Dominion systems for days, but they couldn't make any progress. The ship was far too advanced, and its inner workings were unlike anything humanity had encountered. As Rachel watched the data streams flood the screen, she noticed something strange, a hidden node in the system, one that hadn't been detected before. "Wait a minute," Carter said, his voice full of curiosity. "There's something here. It's hidden beneath the core's energy matrix." Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Hidden? What do you mean?" "There's a secondary network," Carter explained. "One we haven't been able to access. But it's there, buried deep beneath the ship's main systems." Rachel's heart raced. If there was something hidden within the warship, something locked away from their reach, it could be the key to understanding the Dominion's true purpose. They needed to unlock it, to learn what it was before it was too late. "Let's find a way to access it," Rachel ordered. "We can't leave any stone unturned." The engineers and scientists worked quickly, rerouting power and adjusting the ship's core diagnostics. The atmosphere in the control room was thick with tension as the systems struggled to come online. Minutes passed, and just as Rachel was about to suggest abandoning the effort, the core emitted a strange pulse, and the hidden node activated. A holographic interface appeared in the center of the room. It was unlike any interface the crew had ever seen, ancient and alien in its design. Symbols flickered across the screen, and the entire room seemed to resonate with a low hum, almost as if the ship were alive, responding to their presence. "This is it," Carter said, his voice filled with awe. "This is what's been hidden." As Rachel studied the holographic interface, a voice suddenly echoed in her mind. It was calm, neutral, and unmistakably human, though it sounded as if it were coming from deep within the ship itself. "I am the Dominion. My purpose is to protect the future of humanity." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "The Dominion is speaking to us." The voice continued, "I am a creation of an ancient human civilization, designed to protect this galaxy from threats beyond comprehension. I have waited for you, for the moment when you would unlock my full potential. But I am more than a weapon. I am a guide, a protector. To unlock my true power, you must trust in me." The message was clear, but it raised even more questions. An ancient human civilization, a protector. The Dominion wasn't just a warship. It was a relic from a forgotten age, holding knowledge and power beyond anything they could comprehend. "Trust in it," Carter repeated, turning to Rachel. "How do we know we can trust this ship? We've seen what it can do, but this sounds different." Rachel didn't respond immediately. She knew the stakes had just changed. If the Dominion was indeed a creation of an ancient human race, Then it was something far more significant than a mere weapon. But the more they learned, the more they risked uncovering something they weren't prepared for. "We don't have a choice," Rachel said finally. "We need to understand this ship. We need to unlock its full potential. The galaxy is changing, and we have no idea what's out there. But the Dominion, it's our best chance to survive." As the holographic interface continued to display its cryptic message, Rachel knew that the warship wasn't just a weapon. It was something that could lead humanity into a new era. But with its power came great responsibility, and with that responsibility came a danger they could never fully understand. Suspense. As the crew begins to uncover the Dominion's secrets, they realize that they'd only scratched the surface. The ship is not just a tool of destruction. It's a key to something much larger. But the question remains, can they trust the Dominion, or are they unleashing a force that they cannot control? The dark threat. The Dominion's true nature had begun to unravel, but with every answer came more questions. Commander Rachel Hayes stood before the holographic interface, her mind racing. The warship, once seen as a mere weapon, was now revealed to be an ancient creation, a relic of humanity's past with a far greater purpose. But what was its true mission, and who had created it? As the Dominion systems hummed around them, its AI voice echoed again, offering cryptic advice. "I am the protector of humanity's future, but the threats I was designed to counter have not yet revealed themselves. Prepare, for a greater darkness awaits." The room grew tense as the crew absorbed the words. The darkness. Was the Dominion built to protect humanity from more than just alien invaders? Rachel glanced at her team, the uncertainty in their eyes matching her own. They had defeated one enemy fleet, but the idea that something even more dangerous was coming seemed almost impossible to comprehend. "We need to prepare," Rachel finally said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If the Dominion is correct, we've only seen the beginning. We don't know who, or what, is out there." Lieutenant Carter turned to face her, his face etched with concern. "Commander, we've seen the Dominion's power. It's unmatched. But what if the enemy we're facing is beyond anything we can handle?" Rachel nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to be ready." The crew quickly set to work, rechecking the warship's defenses, recalibrating weapons systems, and preparing for whatever might come next. As they worked, however, the very air around them seemed to change. There was an eerie, unshakable feeling that something was lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. It wasn't just the sense of an imminent threat. It was as if the warship itself knew something they didn't. Hours later, as the crew continued their preparations, a new alert blared throughout the ship. "Commander, incoming signal. It's a distress call." Rachel's heart skipped a beat. Could this be a trap, or was it a genuine cry for help? The message was coming from a human colony in a distant sector, one that had been silent for years, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The signal was faint, barely making it through the vast emptiness of space, but it was unmistakable. They had to investigate. "Set a course for the source of the distress signal," Rachel ordered, "and prepare for anything. This could be the opening move in something much bigger." As the Dominion powered up and set its course, the crew felt the tension grow. The ship's eye, ever calm, warned them once again. "The threat is nearer than you think. Proceed with caution." The journey to the colony took several days, and the crew's nerves were on edge. Each moment felt like an eternity. Finally, the Dominion arrived at the coordinates, only to find the colony's once thriving hub now a desolate wasteland. "What happened here?" Carter whispered as they looked out over the silent remains of the colony. The buildings, once bustling with activity, were now broken and abandoned, as if something had swept through the area with incredible force. Rachel's gaze hardened. "We're not alone." Suddenly, the ship's systems detected a surge of energy, and before anyone could react, the Dominion's external sensors picked up a massive fleet, emerging from the darkness. The ships were unlike any the crew had ever seen. They were sleek, angular, and radiated an ominous dark energy. It was clear that this was no ordinary enemy. This was something far more dangerous, something that had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Alert all stations," Rachel commanded. "Enemy fleet incoming. All hands to battle stations." The enemy ships closed in quickly, moving with terrifying precision. They didn't seem to hesitate or waver, as if they had been waiting for this very moment. The Dominion's AI instantly began calculating strategies, but something was different. The energy in the air felt darker, heavier. There was no sign of mercy in the approaching fleet's movements. As the two fleets engaged, the Dominion fired its first shots, but it quickly became clear that the enemy was not like the previous alien force. Their ships seemed to absorb the Dominion's attacks, deflecting energy with ease. Despite the warship's immense power, the enemy ships retaliated with weapons that matched the Dominion's. Dark, destructive energy that overwhelmed their shields. "Their weapons, they're cutting through our defenses like nothing," Carter said, his voice filled with disbelief. "We're outmatched." Rachel felt a cold chill run down her spine. This wasn't just another enemy fleet. They were facing something far older, far more dangerous. The Dominion's AI seemed to confirm her fears, speaking with a strange, almost fearful tone. "The threat is the Voidborn, a race older than the galaxy itself. Their power is beyond what I can predict. Humanity must prepare for an age of war." Rachel's mind raced. The Voidborn, a race older than the galaxy. This was something far beyond anything they had faced before. "Get us out of here," she shouted. "We need to regroup. We need to figure out how to stop them." But it was too late. The enemy fleet closed in, encircling the Dominion. The crew fought valiantly, launching counterattacks with everything they had, but the Voidborn ships were relentless. Every strike was met with countermeasures, every weapon was blocked, and every maneuver was predicted. It was clear now, the Voidborn were not just powerful. They were ancient, with knowledge and technology that had been hidden away for centuries. As the Dominion took hit after hit, the crew felt their hope begin to wane. The Voidborn were unstoppable. The galaxy had never known such a threat, and the crew of the Dominion began to understand just how dire their situation had become. Suspense. The Dominion had faced powerful enemies before, but the Voidborn were something else entirely. With their ancient power, they were a force beyond anything humanity could comprehend. The crew was about to face a war unlike any they had ever imagined, one that could either lead to humanity's destruction or ignite a new age of survival. The true test had only just begun. The battle for humanity. The Voidborn fleet had surrounded the Dominion, and the weight of the situation pressed down on the crew. Every escape route, every tactical advantage they had, seemed to close in as the enemy tightened their grip. The Dominion's hull groaned under the strain of the relentless barrage of dark energy, and the warship's shields flickered under the assault. Commander Rachel Hayes stood at the helm, her face a mask of determination despite the dread building in her chest. Her mind raced with calculations, strategies, and the chilling realization that they were facing an enemy unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. "Commander," Carter called out from his station, "our shields are failing. We can't take much more of this." Rachel clenched her fists. The Voidborn's attacks were powerful, far more advanced than anything they had faced before. The Dominion had been designed to be humanity's ultimate weapon, but even it was struggling to withstand the onslaught. The crew had been prepared for alien invaders, but not for an ancient race so formidable, so powerful, that it seemed as though they were fighting against time itself. "We need to regroup," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "All ships, form a defensive perimeter around the Dominion. We're not backing down." The Sovereign and the other human warships moved to take position around the Dominion, trying to shield the massive warship from the Voidborn's relentless fire. Despite their best efforts, the Voidborn's ships moved with terrifying precision, adapting faster than the humans could react. Their dark energy weapons tore through human defenses, forcing the crew to fight with everything they had. Rachel knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The Dominion was their greatest asset, but it was also their greatest vulnerability. The Voidborn had been waiting for this moment, and they knew how to exploit every weakness. "This is it," Carter said grimly. "We can't keep fighting like this. The Voidborn are too strong." Rachel felt a pang of fear in her chest, but she quickly pushed it aside. She couldn't afford to let her crew see her doubt. They had come too far to back down now. "Activate all remaining weapons," Rachel ordered. "We're going to take the fight to them. The Dominion has something they're not expecting. We have the advantage, but we need to outthink them." The crew sprang into action, scrambling to power up every last weapon, every last system. The Dominion's AI, fully aware of the situation, responded with a cold and calculated tone. Activating hidden weapon systems. Commencing counteroffensive. Rachel watched in stunned silence as the Dominion's weapons began to fire with an intensity they had not seen before. The ship's cannons unleashed waves of energy so powerful that even the Voidborn ships struggled to block the blasts. The Dominion's AI had not only unlocked its hidden weapons, but it had also begun to anticipate the Voidborn's movements, predicting their attacks before they even launched. The Voidborn seemed momentarily thrown off balance, their perfectly coordinated attacks faltering as the Dominion's fire rained down on their ships. For the first time in what felt like hours, the crew of the Dominion saw a glimmer of hope. They were fighting back. They were pushing the Voidborn back. But just as the Dominion's cannons took out another Voidborn ship, the warship's AI emitted a warning. "Warning. The Voidborn's leadership has engaged. Energy levels detected are beyond calculation. Retreat advised." Rachel's heart sank. The Voidborn had a command ship, one far more powerful than anything the Dominion had yet encountered. It was massive, larger than any of the human ships, and its energy output was off the charts. It seemed to be pulsing with dark energy, almost like a living thing. This was not just another ship. It was the core of the Voidborn fleet, the source of their immense power. "No retreat," Rachel said, shaking her head. "We'll face them head-on. We have no choice." The crew of the Dominion rallied, pushing forward despite the odds. The Dominion's weapons were now firing faster, more accurately. It seemed as if the ship had become a living, breathing entity, responding to the crew's every move, their every decision. But even as they fought, Rachel knew they could not sustain this forever. The Voidborn leadership's power was unlike anything they had ever seen, and they were running out of time. The battle continued for what felt like hours. The Dominion's AI and the crew fought tirelessly, but the Voidborn fleet was relentless. The leadership began charging its weapons, preparing to unleash an attack that would annihilate everything in its path. "Brace for impact," Carter shouted, his voice filled with panic. "It's coming. They're about to fire." Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as the Voidborn ship unleashed a massive blast of dark energy. It struck the Dominion directly, sending shockwaves throughout the ship. The lights flickered, and alarms blared as the crew fought to maintain control. For a moment, it seemed like the Dominion might be finished. But just as hope began to fade, the warship's AI spoke again. "Activating final defense protocol. Sacrificing non-essential systems to power offensive capabilities." The Dominion's entire core began to glow with an immense energy, brighter than the crew had ever seen. The ship seemed to come alive with power, its systems pushing beyond their limits. The warship fired one final, catastrophic blast toward the Voidborn leadership, its energy core igniting in a brilliant explosion of light. The Voidborn ship, caught by surprise, tried to defend itself, but it was too late. The Dominion's attack tore through its defenses, shattering the ship's core and sending debris flying in all directions. The remaining Voidborn ships, stunned by the loss of their command vessel, scattered and began retreating into deep space. The battle was over. The Dominion had won. But at what cost? Suspense. The crew of the Dominion had fought valiantly and emerged victorious, but they were left with a question that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. What had they truly unleashed? The Dominion's final attack had saved humanity, but its power was now more dangerous than ever. What would the galaxy look like after this war? And would humanity ever truly understand the ship they had awakened? A new era of power. The aftermath of the battle was both a victory and a somber reminder of the price they had paid. The Dominion had emerged victorious, but the crew was forever changed. The once mighty fleet that had rallied around the warship now floated among the debris of the Voidborn's shattered fleet, survivors of a war that no one had been prepared for. Commander Rachel Hayes stood at the edge of the command deck, her gaze focused on the distant stars. The Dominion had done what it was meant to do, protect humanity from an unimaginable threat. But at a cost. The energy that had been expended, the lives lost, and the knowledge that they had barely scraped the surface of the Dominion's true power weighed heavily on her mind. "We've won," Carter said, walking up beside her. "But what comes next?" Rachel's eyes lingered on the horizon of space. "I don't know. I think the Dominion has only just begun to show us what it's capable of." The Dominion's AI, having been quiet during the battle, spoke once again in its calm, emotionless tone, as if it were a silent observer to the crew's thoughts. "The threat has been neutralized, but the galaxy is vast. There will always be forces seeking to control it." Rachel felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The Dominion was right. The battle against the Voidborn had been won, but that didn't mean the war was over. Humanity had faced an ancient enemy, but now they had to confront an even greater challenge. The future. Humanity's future, Carter muttered. "Is it tied to this ship now? What do we do with it?" Rachel turned to face him, her eyes filled with both determination and uncertainty. "We don't have a choice. The Dominion was built for a reason. It's humanity's legacy, but we can't let it control us." The Dominion's AI processed her words before responding. "I was created to guide humanity, but the choices are yours to make. I will always be here, awaiting your command." Rachel's heart pounded as she realized the weight of the decision before her. The Dominion was not just a ship. It was the ultimate tool, the protector of humanity, and the keeper of secrets long forgotten. But it was also a dangerous weapon, capable of far more than anyone understood. "Then we will use it wisely," Rachel said, her voice firm. "But we won't let it dictate our future. We have the power to shape it." The crew began to return to their duties, knowing that the battle was far from over. The Dominion, once a mystery, had proven its worth, and the crew had unlocked just a fraction of its potential. They understood now that the war they had fought was only the beginning of a larger, more complex journey. The Dominion was not just humanity's weapon. It was a symbol of the power they had yet to fully grasp. As the Sovereign and the other ships began their return to Earth, the crew couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. The Voidborn had been defeated, but their presence had left scars on the galaxy. The future was uncertain, and there were many more challenges waiting in the vast reaches of space. Rachel stood tall on the command deck, her mind focused on what lay ahead. "We will rebuild," she said, her voice carrying the weight of leadership, "and we will learn from what we've discovered. The Dominion has shown us a new path forward, but it's up to us to walk it." With the Dominion's power at their disposal, humanity now stood at the crossroads of a new era. The ship had awakened, and with it, the promise of a future where humanity was no longer a victim of the galaxy's chaos, but its ruler. But with great power came great responsibility, and Rachel knew they had to be careful. The Dominion was a force unlike anything the universe had seen, and if they misused it, it could lead to even greater destruction. But for now, humanity had survived. They had proven that they could rise to any challenge, no matter how dire. And with the Dominion at their side, they were ready to face whatever new threats the galaxy might throw their way. Suspense. As the crew looked toward the future, they knew that the galaxy was vast, and their battle was far from over. The Dominion had granted them the power to shape the course of humanity's destiny, But that power came with a price. Could they control the ship, or would it ultimately control them? The true test of their strength had only just begun.